What if the gods you worshipped were as flawed as you? What if their divine power came with human fears and brutal consequences? Imagine a world where every decision, every emotion, every betrayal among the gods shaped the fate of mortals. This was ancient Greece, a civilization ruled not just by kings, but by a pantheon of gods who were as unpredictable as they were powerful. And at the center stood Zeus, the thunder-wielding ruler, whose choices would ripple through heaven and earth alike. But could even he control the chaos he unleashed? Friends, be sure to subscribe to my Quiet History channel, like it, and leave a comment of at least 7 words. This is necessary for the channel to function. Share this video with others if you think it's important. Thank you. Picture Zeus, seated on his throne atop Mount Olympus, lightning crackling in his grasp. He commands storms, wields thunder, and enforces laws that bind gods and men. Yet behind this image of absolute power lurks a man haunted by jealousy, fear, and a relentless struggle to maintain control. His wife, Hera, watches closely, her own wrath and vengeance threatening to unravel everything. In this divine dance of love and betrayal, power is never absolute. What price will Zeus pay for his unchecked desires? Hera's fury is not just a personal vendetta. It is a force that shapes the very fabric of the gods' realm. Her relentless pursuit of vengeance against Zeus's countless lovers and illegitimate offspring sparks endless conflict. The stakes are enormous. Every quarrel among the gods sends shockwaves through the mortal world, triggering wars, natural disasters, and human tragedies. Ancient Greeks lived under the shadow of these divine feuds, their lives hanging in the balance of immortal grudges. How long can mortals endure such capricious gods? But these gods are not distant, cold arbiters. They bleed, suffer, and falter just like humans. Athena, goddess of wisdom, offers guidance only to those she deems worthy, her favor as elusive as the truth. Apollo, radiant god of art and harmony, balances generosity with strict justice. And Ares, god of war, embodies chaos so fierce it terrifies even his divine kin. Each deity's human flaws make them terrifyingly relatable and dangerously unpredictable. How does a mortal trust a god who can love and destroy with equal fervor? Every mundane moment in ancient Greece, from the birth of a child to the harvest of crops, was a gamble with the gods. A thunderstorm at sea? Poseidon's rage unleashed against sailors. A bountiful harvest? Demeter's blessing upon the land. Love's sudden flame? Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and desire, weaving her intricate webs. These divine interventions were not mere myths, but the tragic realities that governed daily life. Human fate rested on decisions made on Mount Olympus, and one wrong move could spell disaster. What unseen forces pulled the strings of destiny? The ancient Greek pantheon was a complex system, a fragile balance of power and emotion. Each god held dominion over a realm: sky, sea, wisdom, love. But none stood beyond conflict or consequence. Their stories reveal a profound truth. Even the mightiest are bound by weakness. Through myth, the Greeks confronted the terrifying uncertainty of existence, acknowledging that power without wisdom is a recipe for ruin. Their gods were mirrors of mankind's own struggles with fear, ambition, and fate. Could understanding divine frailty teach mortals to face their own? This was a world where gods were not omnipotent strangers, but flawed beings whose passions and rivalries shaped history itself. The drama of Olympus was a constant storm, relentless and unforgiving. Every decision, by god or man, carried immense weight, echoing through time with irreversible consequences. The legacy of these divine tales survives in art, literature, in the very notion of heroism and destiny that defines Western culture today. But the question remains, in a world ruled by such volatile gods, who truly holds power? Join us as we delve into the heart of ancient Greek religion, a realm where human fear and divine will collide, where every choice is a step on the razor's edge of fate. These myths are more than stories. They are the echoes of a civilization grappling with the terrifying complexity of existence. Through their gods, the Greeks explored the fragile line between order and chaos, love and hate, power and vulnerability. Are we not, in the end, like them, caught between forces beyond our control, making choices that shape our destiny? If you want to uncover the gripping saga of gods who loved, fought, and fell, of mortals whose lives were forever changed by divine whims, subscribe to Quiet History. Together we will explore the raw, human heart beating beneath the immortal thunder of Olympus. Your journey into the past begins now. What drives a goddess to weave deadly intrigues fueled by jealousy? How can love inspire the greatest deeds, yet shatter lives forever? Aphrodite, the goddess of love, embodies this terrifying duality. She ignites passions that push mortals to the edge, but her whims can bring ruin. Her power is not gentle. It is a force that shapes destinies, often with irreversible consequences. And just as volatile is her counterpart, fearsome Hades, lord of the underworld, whose cold realm conceals a love so profound it reveals his hidden humanity. These gods were far from distant idols. They were living embodiments of human emotions, fear, desire, grief, woven into the fabric of existence. Yet, their stories hide an even deeper tension, one that blurs the line between divine will and mortal fate. Every bolt of lightning that tore across the sky, every bountiful harvest or devastating famine, every victory and crushing defeat on the battlefield, they all echoed the will of these gods. But what truly grips the soul is not their might, but the tangled, tragic myths through which their power was revealed. Myths were not mere tales. They were the battleground of irreversible choices, where gods and humans collided in stories heavy with consequence. They explained the changing seasons through Demeter's endless mourning for Persephone, stolen to the underworld by Hades, a grief that froze the earth each winter, holding life hostage. These narratives were a relentless tide, pulling humanity into a world where every action had weight, every decision a price. Consider Prometheus, the titan who dared steal fire from the gods, not just a simple theft, but a defiant act of hope and rebellion. His punishment was eternal torment, yet his sacrifice became a symbol of humankind's relentless quest for knowledge and progress. His story is a searing testament to the price of irreversible choices. Choices that could ignite civilizations, or doom souls to eternal agony. This is the raw, brutal heartbeat of Greek mythology, a world where divine power and human will clash, where fear and hope dance hand in hand, and where every step forward risks plunging into darkness. The gods demanded no blind worship. They inspired fear, respect, gratitude, even hatred. A sailor might beseech Poseidon for calm seas, only to curse the tempest that shattered his sails hours later. A farmer would offer gifts to Demeter, yet harbor bitterness when drought withered his crops. These were not distant, unchanging deities, but complex beings intertwined with human fate, volatile, unpredictable, deeply personal. The relationship between gods and mortals was a fragile balancing act, a constant negotiation teetering on the edge of disaster. Every prayer, every sacrifice was a gamble with the cosmic order. Religion permeated every moment of life. Morning prayers, grand festivals, towering temples, solemn sacrifices, all attempts to sway the gods' favor. Even the smallest ritual, like lifting a cup of wine or breaking the first bread, was charged with profound meaning, a desperate plea to a universe where the divine and mortal were inseparable. This was not a world of certainty, but of ever-present tension, where the sacred and the profane collided daily, where the invisible threads of fate could unravel in an instant. Among the pantheon, Zeus stands resolute, the supreme ruler of Olympus, thunderer of the skies, master of fate. But his ascent was not ordained. It was forged in cruel trials beneath the shadows of primordial chaos. Before him, there was only the void, chaos itself. From this formless abyss arose Gaia, Mother Earth, whose union with Uranus birthed the Titans, colossal beings embodying nature's primeval forces. These ancient gods, each a living element, the endless waters of Oceanus, the pristine springs of Tethys, the radiant light of Hyperion, were the original architects of the world's order and chaos. Yet power's hunger breeds treachery. Cronus, the youngest Titan and son of Gaia and Uranus, was driven by an insatiable thirst for dominion. Urged on by his mother, he betrayed his own father, overthrowing Uranus in a brutal act that shattered the cosmic balance. This first seizure of power through betrayal set a dark blueprint for what was to come. Cronus's reign marked the dawn of a new era, a fragile throne built on fear and paranoia, where every shadow hid a potential usurper. The weight of his choice sent ripples that would echo through eternity, threatening to unravel the very fabric of the divine order. Yet even the mightiest gods relied on weapons forged by those they ruled, a gift from the Cyclopes. The thunderbolt given to Zeus as a symbol of his divine authority. This weapon was not just a tool of destruction, but a manifestation of absolute power, capable of shattering kingdoms and rewriting destinies with a single strike. Every lightning bolt hurled by Zeus carried the burden of sovereignty and the crushing weight of choice. Choices that shaped the heavens and the earth alike. In this turbulent world, every decision was a step deeper into the labyrinth of fate, where no path could be undone, and every consequence was eternal. Are we to believe that the ancient myths serve only as distant stories? Or do they mirror the relentless human struggle, where every desire, every betrayal, every act of defiance is a moment that irrevocably changes the course of life. Join quiet history to delve deeper into the shadows where gods and mortals collide, where fear and hope forge the chains of destiny. Subscribe and step into the storm of irreversible decisions that forged our world. What happens when a god's hunger for power crosses into the realm of reckless desire? Zeus, the supreme ruler of Olympus, was not only a victor in battle, but a deity driven by an insatiable passion that led him down paths where divine authority clashed with forbidden longing. In that moment, Zeus gained what made him invincible, but at what cost? Take the stunning tale of Ganymede, a boy whose beauty was so blinding even a god's resolve faltered. Zeus, in the form of a majestic eagle, swooped down from Olympus, seizing the youth with claws that were both powerful and merciless. Ganymede was carried to the heavens, destined to serve nectar to the gods, a prize and a prisoner in one breath. Yet even as Zeus offered immortal horses to the boy's grieving father, whispers of scandal echoed through the divine halls. What secret shadows lurked behind this divine abduction? Or consider Europa, the daughter of a Phoenician king, strolling along the shore when a radiant white bull with golden horns approached. This was no ordinary beast, but Zeus in disguise, cloaked in animal form to deceive and seduce. As Europa mounted his back, the god surged across the sea to Crete, unveiling his true divine self. From their union came Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Sarpedon, figures who would shape Greek myth forever. But what price did Europa pay for this crossing into immortal fate? Then there's Danae, daughter of Argus's king Acrisius, locked away in a bronze tower to prevent a prophecy her son would be the cause of his grandfather's death. Walls could contain men, but not gods. Zeus transformed into a golden shower, slipping through the narrowest cracks to reach Danae. Conceived in secret, Perseus, her son, would grow into the hero destined to slay Medusa and rescue Andromeda. But was fate a blessing or a curse in the making? And at the heart of these stories is Hercules, Zeus's most famed son, born of the mortal Alcmene. Zeus, cunning as ever, assumed the guise of Alcmene's husband Amphitryon to claim her. From this union came a hero whose name would echo through eternity, a symbol of strength and relentless courage. Yet his birth ignited a storm of wrath in Hera, Zeus's wife, her hatred shaping the trials that defined his legend. How far can a mother's jealousy and a god's passion tear a family apart? No discussion of Zeus is complete without Hera, the complex goddess of marriage and protector of family bonds. Hera was not merely Zeus's wife. She was a queen with passions of her own, fiercely guarding the sanctity of marriage and tradition. But her story is woven with contradictions, love and jealousy, power and vulnerability, intertwining in a relentless dance. Legend says their marriage began with trickery. Zeus disguised himself as a frozen cuckoo seeking warmth, and when Hera took him in, he revealed his true form and demanded her hand. A union forged in deception would breed lifelong conflict. Zeus's numerous affairs were not mere indiscretions. They were sparks that ignited Hera's fury time and again. Each betrayal was a blow to her pride, a challenge to the order she vowed to protect. Hera's vengeance was as formidable as Zeus's desires, targeting both her husband and the women caught in his web. Her jealousy was fierce, relentless, and unforgiving. But what happens when a queen's wrath clashes with a god's dominion? The struggle between them was never just personal. It was a cosmic battle over power, respect, and survival. Zeus's passions shaped destinies, tore families apart, and carved legends into the fabric of eternity. Hera's responses revealed the cost of love entwined with wrath. Together, their story is a relentless tide of choices and consequences, where human fear and divine will collide. Are you ready to dive deeper into these immortal struggles? Subscribe to Quiet History and uncover how the gods' irreversible decisions continue to echo through time. What drives a goddess to relentless vengeance? How far would Hera go to preserve her marriage with Zeus? Her wrath was not mere emotion. It was a force capable of unleashing chaos, shaping destinies with brutal consequences. Hera's fury extended beyond lovers to their innocent children, spawning myths of tragedy and warning. But what dark price did these choices demand? Consider Leto, a titaness marked by Hera's rage. Pregnant with Zeus's twins, she found no refuge on earth. Hera forbade any land from sheltering her. Alone and in agony, Leto wandered until fate led her to the shifting island of Delos, untethered from the earth and beyond Hera's curse. There she gave birth to Apollo and Artemis, gods destined to reshape Olympus. This story reveals not only Hera's merciless jealousy, but also the relentless will to survive against all odds. Yet the war between jealousy and survival was just beginning. Hera's relentless pursuit did not end with divine offspring. When Zeus's mortal lover Io was transformed into a cow to hide their affair, Hera saw through the deception. Claiming the cow as her own, she assigned Argus, the 100-eyed giant, to keep an unblinking watch. Zeus's cunning sent Hermes to slay Argus and free Io, but Hera's vengeance morphed into torment. She unleashed a relentless gadfly, driving Io into madness and exile until she finally reached Egypt and reclaimed her human form. Each step was a cruel chess move and a game with no mercy. But perhaps no victim symbolized Hera's wrath more than Heracles, the mortal son of Zeus and Alcmene. Hera's hatred ignited before his birth. She forced Eileithyia, goddess of childbirth, to delay his arrival, desperate to prevent his existence. When that failed, she sent serpents to kill the infant in his cradle. Yet Heracles strangled them with raw strength, defying death itself. Hera's vendetta haunted him his entire life, fueling trials that would etch his name into legend. Was his fate forged by divine hatred, or something stronger? Hera's fury did not merely punish, it shaped Heracles' path. She drove him to madness, provoking the tragic murder of his own family, a sin that demanded redemption through 12 labors imposed by her will. Through suffering and endurance, Heracles transcended mortality to become a god. Their bitter conflict ended not with destruction, but with an uneasy reconciliation, a testament to fate's ambiguous design. What does this say about power, vengeance, and forgiveness among gods? From the skies of Olympus, we descend to the tumultuous seas ruled by Poseidon, Zeus's brother, a god whose veins ran with the very essence of the ocean. He held the power to grant calm seas or summon storms that could shatter fleets. His trident symbolized absolute dominion over water and earth's trembling depths. But beneath his grand palace of pearls and gold lies a tempest waiting to erupt, a reflection of his mercurial nature and devastating wrath. Poseidon was no mere ruler. He was the embodiment of the sea's raw, unpredictable force. His laughter echoed over waves when pleased, but a single strike of his trident could turn placid waters into raging chaos. His dominion extended beyond oceans to earthquakes and horses, creatures born from his violent power. Every act of Poseidon was a volatile decision, shaping the mortal world's fragile balance with unpredictable consequences. What storms lay ahead under his watchful eye? Before the divine drama of Hera and Poseidon, another crucial act unfolded within Zeus himself. His wife Metis, goddess of wisdom, carried a child destined to surpass even Zeus. Terrified by this prophecy, Zeus swallowed Metis whole, attempting to erase the threat in a single, fatal decision. But wisdom could not be destroyed. Inside Zeus, Metis endured, crafting Athena from within him, born not of flesh, but of pure intellect and strategy. Was this act a triumph of power, or its cruelest deception? The birth of Athena was painful and cataclysmic. Zeus felt a shattering agony as if Olympus itself tore open. Summoning Hephaestus, the god struck Zeus's head with a mighty hammer, and from the crack emerged Athena, fully formed and armed. This moment of violent creation marked the rise of a new force, wisdom born from chaos, a goddess who would challenge gods and mortals alike. How often do the most brilliant minds emerge from the fractures of pain and fear? In these intertwining stories of Hera, Poseidon, Zeus, and Athena, we witness the brutal dance of fear and power, of irreversible choices echoed through time. Each decision rippled across the cosmos, shaping destinies and unleashing forces no one could control. The gods were not distant watchers. They were players in a tragic game where every move carried weighty consequences. What lessons remain from this divine saga of wrath, survival, and transformation? If you're drawn to the fierce battles of gods and the fateful decisions that echo through history, subscribe to Quiet History. Join us as we unravel the hidden forces that shaped our world, one story at a time. What happens when wisdom is born through violence, when the very first cry is a battle scream? Athena burst forth fully armored, spear in hand, shattering the silence like a lightning strike at dawn. She did not simply enter the world. She declared that wisdom and strength are inseparable, two sides of a deadly coin. But what does it truly mean to wield power with intelligence? Athena was no mere warrior craving the chaos of battle. She was a strategist, a mentor, a guardian for those who dared to seek her counsel. Her influence shaped the fates of legends, weaving wisdom into the bloodied tapestry of heroes' lives. Among them, Odysseus stood out, the wiliest of mortals, favored by Athena's keen intellect. But how far would her guidance stretch against the wrath of gods? Odysseus sailed storm-tossed seas, haunted by Poseidon's fury. Yet Athena's voice, sharp and unwavering, navigated him through monstrous dangers, Scylla's snapping jaws, Charybdis's deadly whirlpool. Her cunning plans pierced the walls of Troy, opening the path for victory and homecoming. Still, her aid was no gift handed freely. It demanded the sharpness of mind, and the courage to act. When Perseus faced Medusa's petrifying gaze, Athena's wisdom became his shield, a mirrored buckler reflecting terror without surrender. "Do not look at her directly," she warned, "but see only through her reflection." This lethal advice saved his life and forged a weapon of myth, the Gorgon's severed head mounted on Athena's shield, the formidable Aegis. Yet what price is paid for such power cloaked in cunning? Athena was not merely a goddess of war. She embodied creation and prosperity. Her gift to Athens, the olive tree, stood as a symbol of peace, fertility, and enduring strength. Unlike the fire of conflict, this tree flourished quietly, reminding mortals that true wisdom builds rather than destroys. And beside her, the owl, piercing through darkness, symbolized insight unseen by others. How does wisdom balance the sword with the olive branch? Even minted on ancient coins, Athena's owl represented wealth and protection, a guardian in the shadows of commerce and battle alike. She was more than a deity. She was the ideal leader, rational, just, and strong. Her presence on the battlefield struck fear not through violence alone, but through the promise of measured judgment and unyielding resolve. But what shadows lurk behind such an imposing figure? Her voice was confident, never loud, a quiet command that unsettled foes before swords clashed. There was no cruelty in her legend, only the hard lessons of intelligence wielded like a blade. Her story warns us that strength without wisdom is reckless, and that true power can conquer without spilling endless blood. And yet, beyond this calm, a storm was gathering. After Athena's reign of calculated power, the stage darkened for a tempest of passion and war, an explosive union between Ares and Aphrodite. Their bond was a volatile collision of destruction and desire, a drama etched in the annals of Greek myth. Could such opposing forces ever truly coexist, or was their affair doomed to tear worlds apart? Ares, towering and fierce, embodied the brutal rage of war, the chaos that tears through civilizations. His flaming hair and piercing eyes radiated deadly menace, while his bronze armor gleamed like the sun's dying light. In his grip, the spear was a symbol of unrelenting violence. But across the battlefield of his heart stood an opposing force. Aphrodite, radiant and graceful, wielded a power not of destruction, but of irresistible allure. Her beauty was supernatural, skin glowing with ethereal light, hair cascading like liquid sun, eyes deep pools of love and lust. She soothed even the fiercest warriors, weaving peace through passion's delicate threads. Yet her heart was tethered to the very god who thrived on conflict. Their alliance was a paradox, a blend of fire and silk that birthed chaos and harmony alike. Behind closed doors, their secret romance defied divine law and mortal understanding. But secrets among gods are fragile. Would their union survive exposure, or would the consequences unravel their fragile world? Enter Hephaestus, the master craftsman and god of the forge, husband to Aphrodite. Known for his skill and cunning, he uncovered their hidden liaison and devised a trap of intricate design. What happens when jealousy and craft combine, and divine secrets are laid bare for all to witness? The fate of gods and mortals alike hung in the balance. In this crucible of passion, war, and betrayal, the choices made by Athena, Odysseus, Perseus, Ares, Aphrodite, and Hephaestus echo through time. Each decision carved irreversible paths, each consequence a ripple in the endless tides of history. What lessons remain when the dust of battle settles and the gods watch silently from their thrones? Join us on Quiet History as we unravel these stories of power and wisdom, love and rage, the tales that define the very essence of human fear and ambition. Subscribe now and step into the world where every choice could mean the difference between glory and ruin. What happens when a god's greatest creation becomes a weapon of betrayal? He limped on one leg, a physical flaw that belied the sharpness of his mind and the unmatched skill of his hands. This was Hephaestus, the divine craftsman whose genius forged wonders beyond mortal comprehension. But when suspicion gnawed at him, when he believed Aphrodite, his wife, was unfaithful, he did not lash out in rage. Instead, he crafted a trap so cunning, so invisible, it would change the fate of Olympus forever. Hephaestus wove a delicate net from an unseen metal, light as air, yet unbreakable, a masterpiece of deception and precision. He placed this silent snare within Aphrodite's chambers, the secret meeting place of her illicit rendezvous with Ares, the god of war. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shatter illusions and expose hidden truths. But what would happen when passion collided with vengeance? The day their forbidden desire flared once more, the trap snapped shut. Ares and Aphrodite found themselves ensnared, immobilized by the invisible chains that mocked their power. Hephaestus summoned the gods of Olympus to witness their humiliation, expecting scorn and judgment. Instead, the mighty assembly erupted in laughter, thunderous, uncontrollable laughter that echoed through the halls. Even Zeus, the king of gods, could not suppress a smile at the sight of the war god and the goddess of love caught so helplessly. This spectacle revealed more than just a scandal. It exposed the fragile threads of pride and passion that bind even immortals. But behind the laughter lurked a darker truth. Ares was not merely a warrior. He was a force of destruction, accompanied by his terrifying children, Phobos, fear, and Deimos, terror. Phobos, the embodiment of fear itself, was a haunting figure. Tall and gaunt, his skin pale as mist, his eyes burned like glowing embers, and his face twisted in a permanent grimace of dread. He stalked the battlefield alongside his father, seeding paralyzing terror in the hearts of enemies. His presence alone could break the will of the bravest warriors, turning courage into chaos. Deimos, in stark contrast, was a hulking shadow, a living embodiment of panic and madness. His cruel grin and jagged movements spread confusion and frenzy, driving foes into irrational frenzy and despair. Together, these brothers were the dark spirits of war's psychological torment, relentless companions to Ares' violent nature. War was not just a clash of swords and shields. It was a battle for the mind and soul. Ares' fury was boundless, his temper explosive, a storm of rage that consumed everything in its path. Yet standing beside him was Aphrodite, the goddess of harmony and beauty, whose mere gaze could quell the fiercest conflict. Their union was paradoxical, a delicate balance of opposing forces. Like a tempest followed by a rainbow, like thunder silenced by sudden calm, their relationship embodied the eternal dance of love and war. This volatile bond was a reminder that even gods are prisoners of their passions, capable of both destruction and profound beauty. The story of Ares and Aphrodite is one of fateful choices and irreversible consequences, a saga where desire and violence intertwine. It reveals that the divine are not immune to error, that their struggles mirror our own, and that love and war are two sides of the same coin, shaping the destiny of gods and mortals alike. But the tale does not end there. Hephaestus, once cast out and scorned for his deformity, was forced to forge chains for Prometheus, the Titan punished by Zeus for gifting fire to humanity. Bound to a rock, Prometheus suffered daily torment as an eagle devoured his liver, a punishment wrought by the very hands of the god who had endured rejection. Hephaestus's story is a testament to resilience, how weakness can be transformed into strength, how pain can fuel creation. Despite his limp and humiliation, he proved indispensable, shaping the fate of gods and men through his unmatched craftsmanship. His creations were not mere objects. They were symbols of power, hope, and balance. His armor shielded heroes, his inventions inspired legends, and his forge became the birthplace of mythology itself. Hephaestus taught that fire is not only a force of destruction, but a source of creation, a duality that defines existence. As the stories of divine craftsmanship and celestial conflict unfold, we are reminded that every choice, every act of passion or vengeance sets in motion a chain of events that cannot be undone. The gods of Olympus, with all their power and flaws, are reflections of the human condition, caught in the relentless tide of fear, love, and the consequences of their own making. If this tale of gods and mortals, of love and war, has captured your imagination, subscribe to Quiet History for more stories that reveal the hidden forces shaping our world. What price is paid when divine light confronts primordial chaos? How do twin gods embody the eternal battle between brilliance and shadow? And what fate awaits those who dare challenge the gods' unforgiving justice? Meet Apollo and Artemis, the formidable Olympian siblings whose intertwined destinies reveal the fragile balance of power, truth, and retribution. Apollo, the radiant god of the sun, music, and prophecy, shines brighter than all. Imagine a tall, slender youth with golden hair glowing like dawn's first light and eyes shimmering with ancient wisdom. Draped in a golden toga, he wields a lyre that sings celestial melodies, or a bow that strikes with unerring precision. But Apollo's light is a double-edged sword. It warms and enlightens, yet it can cut deeper than any blade. His pursuit of truth is relentless, and his clarity sometimes inflicts wounds that never heal. Apollo's temple in Delphi was the spiritual heart of Greece, a place where desperate souls sought glimpses of their futures. But this sacred site was born from violence, and cosmic order wrestled from chaos. When Apollo arrived, he confronted Python, a monstrous serpent guarding the primal spring of wild forces. With his bow and arrows, Apollo slew the beast, cleansing the source and transforming it into a sanctuary of prophecy. Yet the words that emerged from the Pythia, the priestess, were cryptic riddles, shrouded in mystery, as if truth itself resisted easy understanding. But Apollo's dominion was not without challenge. A satyr named Marsyas dared to question the god's supremacy, claiming his pipes rivaled Apollo's lyre. The stakes were brutally clear. The loser would suffer unspeakable punishment. They played their music upside down, a cruel twist of fate designed to test skill beyond mortal limits. Marsyas faltered, and Apollo's wrath was merciless, reminding all that divine art is an unreachable summit where hubris invites ruin. Now turn to Artemis, Apollo's twin sister, the embodiment of wilderness and untamed freedom. Her hair flows like moonlight, her eyes gleam with cold starlight. Clad in a light tunic fit for the hunt, she carries a silver bow and a quiver full of arrows. Wild animals follow her as if bound by sacred loyalty. Artemis is not merely a goddess of the chase, she is a fierce protector of nature's secrets and a guardian of those who seek independence. One myth captures the brutal consequences of mortal arrogance. Queen Niobe, proud and scornful, boasted she was greater than Leto, mother of Apollo and Artemis. Such insolence summoned divine retribution. Apollo struck down Niobe's sons, Artemis her daughters, sparing only one child to bear witness to the cost of pride. Niobe fled in agony to the mountains, where she was turned to stone, her tears forever streaming, a monument to eternal grief and mortal folly. Artemis vowed eternal chastity, rejecting marriage and the constraints of mortal bonds. She roamed free, surrounded by nymphs who mirrored her independence and strength. Her defiance became a beacon for young women who sought power not through submission, but through self-determination and communion with the wild. She represents the raw, untamable forces within ourselves that resist control. Together, Apollo and Artemis embody the paradoxical unity of opposites, light and shadow, sound and silence, civilization and wilderness. Apollo's brilliance challenges us to seek clarity and harmony, even when truth is harsh. Artemis's fierce spirit reminds us to protect nature's mysteries and to honor freedom at all costs. Their stories are a relentless chain of fateful choices, where every decision echoes through eternity. In the end, what do their legends teach us? That every act of illumination casts a shadow, and every act of rebellion risks annihilation. That clarity may wound, and that silence can roar with power. Apollo and Artemis are not just gods. They are forces shaping human fear, hope, and the irreversible consequences of our choices. Will we dare to face their light and darkness without flinching? For more stories where history's thunder meets human destiny, subscribe to Quiet History. What if every choice you make sets in motion forces beyond your control? What if love and loss are intertwined in a cycle that shapes the very world we live in? The ancient myth of Demeter and Persephone is not just a tale of abduction. It is the story of irreversible decisions that echo through the seasons, through life and death itself. In the dawn of time, when gods walked among mortals, and the earth was still young, a mother's love and a daughter's fate became the foundation of nature's eternal rhythm. Demeter, goddess of fertility, was the living earth, her golden hair like ripe wheat swaying in the wind, her hands blessing the fields with abundance. But beneath her nurturing exterior lurked a tempest, ready to unleash devastation if her beloved daughter was threatened. Persephone, the youthful goddess of spring, was a vision of beauty and life. Her laughter chimed like bells, and her footsteps stirred the earth to bloom. Yet her charm drew more than admiration. It attracted the dark gaze of Hades, ruler of the underworld, whose shadowed realm was a prison of silence and death. He was not cruel by nature, but his isolation made him a figure of dread and mystery. Hades, elder brother to Zeus, saw in Persephone not just a prize, but a queen for his somber kingdom. One fateful day, as Persephone reached for a radiant narcissus flower, its petals shimmering like stars, the earth itself split open. From the depths emerged Hades' chariot, drawn by ominous horses, ready to claim her forever. This moment was a point of no return. Persephone's abduction shattered the balance between life and death, plunging the world into despair. Demeter's grief was a force of nature itself. She withdrew her blessings, and the earth withered, crops failed, and famine spread. The gods watched helplessly as the mortal world teetered on the brink of ruin. But this myth is more than tragedy. It is the explanation of the seasons, the cycle of loss and rebirth. Persephone's time in the underworld and her return to the surface symbolize the eternal dance between darkness and light, death and life. Each choice, each moment of surrender, carved the path for the world's endless transformation. Meanwhile, Hermes, the cunning messenger god, played a crucial role as mediator between realms. Known as a trickster and guide, he was the bridge between gods and mortals, life and death. His interventions often resolved the most perilous conflicts, guiding souls to the underworld and aiding heroes like Perseus in their quests. Then there is Dionysus, the god who embodies life's wild, chaotic spirit. Born twice, first from the mortal Semele, then from Zeus's own thigh after Semele's tragic death, Dionysus's existence was marked by pain and rebirth. His passion for nature and wine brought both ecstasy and madness to humanity, a potent reminder of life's unpredictable power. Dionysus's gift was more than fermented grapes. It was a magic that unlocked hidden emotions, stirred the soul's deepest fears and desires. His influence rippled through the mortal world, challenging order and inviting chaos, just as the myth of Demeter and Persephone challenges the fragile balance between light and shadow. These intertwined stories reveal a world where gods and mortals are bound by choices that cannot be undone, where love can lead to loss, and loss can birth renewal, where the seasons turn not by chance, but by the will of forces both tender and terrifying. As you reflect on these ancient tales, ask yourself, what price would you pay to protect those you love? What darkness lurks beneath the surface of beauty and life? The myth of Demeter and Persephone is a timeless reminder that every decision carries a consequence, and some choices change the world forever. If you found this journey into the heart of myth compelling, subscribe to Quiet History for more stories that uncover the shadows behind history's greatest legends. What happens when a king dares to defy the very god who brings ecstasy and chaos? Pentheus, the king of Thebes, thought he could suppress the wild celebrations of Dionysus, branding them immoral and dangerous. But defying a god isn't just rebellion, It's a deadly mistake. Fueled by rage, Dionysus cursed Pentheus with madness, twisting his mind until he became a pawn in a tragic game. The king's fatal curiosity forced him to spy on the frenzied Bacchic rites, unaware that his doom awaited in the shadows. When he tried to intervene, the women driven mad by Dionysus tore him apart, mistaking him for a wild beast. A brutal reminder that human passions and primal nature cannot be denied, nor ignored. Yet the story of Dionysus is only the beginning of an epic saga of power, deception, and irreversible choices. Before the reign of the Olympian gods we know, a war, unlike any other, shattered the cosmos. A war born from the fractures of family itself. The Titanomachy, a brutal battle between the ancient Titans and their rebellious offspring, the Olympians, was not just a clash for power, but a violent revolution to shape the fate of the universe. Zeus, the youngest son of Cronus, knew his destiny was sealed the moment he was born. With the help of his mother, he tricked Cronus into vomiting up his swallowed siblings, freeing them from a dark imprisonment. Together, they formed an alliance fueled by vengeance and hope, launching a decade-long war that would echo through eternity. Imagine titanic forces raging across the heavens and the earth, each strike shaking the very foundations of reality. The Titans, monstrous and ancient, wielded devastating power. Atlas, holding up the sky itself, Ocean, embodying the boundless seas, and Hyperion, blazing as the Titan of light. Against their overwhelming might stood the young Olympians, unproven, yet fiercely united under Zeus's command. They lacked the raw strength of their elders, but what they had was cunning, resilience, and an unbreakable spirit. The battlefield became a tempest of fury and strategy, where every decision could tip the scales toward oblivion or triumph. In the darkest depths of the underworld, Zeus struck a daring bargain. He ventured into Tartarus and freed the Cyclopes and Hecatoncheires, monstrous creatures imprisoned for eons. These beings were not just terrifying, they were the weapons the Olympians desperately needed. The one-eyed Cyclopes forged divine armaments, Zeus's lightning bolt, Poseidon's trident, and Hades' helmet of invisibility, tools of war that could change destiny itself. The Hecatoncheires, giants with 100 hands, became unstoppable forces, hurling boulders and shattering Titan lines. With these terrifying allies, the tide of war surged violently, and the heavens trembled with every thunderous clash. The battlefield stretched from the towering peaks of Olympus to the shadowed valleys below, a relentless storm of lightning, earthquakes, and terror. Zeus unleashed his bolts with devastating precision, illuminating the skies in blinding flashes. Poseidon's trident stirred oceans into monstrous tsunamis and cracked the earth with seething quakes. Hades, hidden by his helm, infiltrated enemy ranks, sowing panic and confusion. The Hecatoncheires, relentless and savage, broke the Titans' formations with unyielding fury, while the Cyclopes forged fresh weapons on the fiery anvil of war. Every second carried the weight of destiny, every moment a razor's edge between survival and annihilation. But the Titans were no mere relics to be easily cast aside. Their overwhelming strength and savage fury shook the universe to its core. Atlas bore the sky as an unbreakable burden, attempting to crush the Olympians' resolve. Hyperion's blinding light seared through the darkness, threatening to annihilate those who dared stand against him. Cronus, wielding his dreaded sickle, fought with desperate ferocity, unwilling to surrender the throne he had ruled for ages. The war was not just a battle. It was an existential struggle, a clash of generations, where every strike echoed with fate's cruel whisper. 10 years of relentless war finally carved the path toward an irreversible future. The young Olympians, fueled by unity and strategy, overcame the raw power of their ancient foes. The defeated Titans were hurled into the abyss of Tartarus, chained behind walls no mortal could breach, guarded eternally by the monstrous Hecatoncheires to ensure no uprising would rise again. The cosmos breathed a new order, one forged in pain, betrayal, and the cruel necessity of dominance. This was not a victory born of mercy, but a ruthless assertion of a new world. From the ashes of this cosmic upheaval arose Zeus, crowned ruler of the heavens and the earth, his reign marking the dawn of a new era. Yet every choice in this saga, Pentheus's defiance, Zeus's rebellion, the Titans' resistance, reveals the eternal tension between order and chaos, freedom and fate. The threads of history are woven from decisions that cannot be undone, from passions that cannot be silenced. And as the gods took their thrones, the world held its breath, knowing that every conquest births new shadows, every triumph sows seeds of future turmoil. Now, as we stand on the threshold of this divine saga, we must ask ourselves, how far would you go to seize your destiny? How deeply can you trust the forces unleashed by your own choices? The stories of gods and mortals remind us that every decision carries consequences, and some paths, once taken, can never be walked back. Join us as we unravel these ancient tales where power, passion, and prophecy collide. Subscribe to Quiet History and dive deeper into the epic saga that shaped the world. What happens when immortal gods, believed to be beyond human flaws, are driven by jealousy, rage, and forbidden love? How does a simple golden apple ignite a war that will echo through the ages? The Trojan War was not just a battle between mortals. It was a divine chess game fueled by pride and betrayal. At the heart of this tempest stood Paris, a young prince whose choice would shatter alliances and seal fates. The chaos began at a wedding where all gods were invited, except Eris, the goddess of discord. Spurned and furious, she threw a golden apple inscribed, "To the fairest," into the crowd. The spark was lit. Athena, Hera, and Aphrodite each claimed the prize, igniting a rivalry that tore the divine realm apart. Zeus, unwilling to pick sides, forced the mortal Paris to decide the winner, a choice with consequences no one could foresee. Each goddess tempted Paris with a bribe that promised power beyond imagination. Athena with wisdom and military glory, Hera with sovereignty and riches, and Aphrodite with the love of the most beautiful woman on earth, Helen, wife of Spartan king Menelaus. Paris's choice, Aphrodite, was not just a decision, but an irreversible act that fractured the gods into warring factions, making the heavens tremble with impending conflict. The Olympians, though gods, were no strangers to human frailty. Their passions ignited jealousy and hatred that spilled over onto mortal battlegrounds. Athena and Hera sided with the Greeks, Aphrodite with the Trojans. The divine intervention twisted the fate of men, turning a personal vendetta into a war that would define an era. This was no mere myth. It was a saga of irreversible choices and devastating consequences. Yet the story of the Olympians is also the story of transformation, of old orders crushed to make way for new ones. The Titanomachy symbolize the violent birth of order from chaos, a generational clash that echoes through history. The establishment of Olympus was not a triumphant end, but the beginning of a fragile balance, maintained by laws that promised harmony, yet concealed a restless undercurrent of rivalry. This tension was not confined to war. It spilled into the very fabric of Greek society, where festivals became battlegrounds for divine favor and human glory. The Panathenaic Games, celebrated every 4 years, were more than just contests of strength. They were a grand procession of art, wisdom, and devotion to Athena. The city of Athens marched to the Acropolis bearing a magnificent peplos, a woven cloak depicting her triumphs, all beneath the watchful gaze of her golden statue. Sports, music, poetry, and dance converged in these festivals, uniting citizens in a display of cultural power and divine reverence. Chariot races thundered, melodies soared, and poets unveiled tragedies that echoed the gods' own flaws and passions. Victors earned not just fame, but sacred amphorae filled with olive oil, emblems of the goddess's favor. Yet beneath this celebration lay the shadow of conflict, the reminder that even beauty and art were born from struggle. In contrast, the Dionysian festivals offered a different kind of release, wild, chaotic, and ecstatic. Celebrated twice annually, these rites honored Dionysus, god of wine, theater, and revelry. In rustic villages during the Lesser Dionysia and Grand Athens during the Greater Dionysia, the city transformed into a stage where myths came alive. Here, tragic poets like Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides challenged audiences to confront fate, fear, and the gods' merciless whims. The theater of Dionysus, nestled beneath the Acropolis, became a crucible where spectators experienced catharsis, an intense emotional purge, reminding all that beneath immortal grandeur lurk mortal vulnerabilities and irreversible destinies. The stories of gods and men intertwine in a relentless cycle, each choice carving a path from chaos to order, each emotion a force shaping worlds. These myths endure because they capture the essence of human fear and hope, the unbearable weight of decisions that cannot be undone. They remind us that from the ashes of conflict arise new beginnings, fragile yet defiant, forever dancing on the edge of fate. If these tales of divine turmoil and mortal courage fascinate you, stay with Quiet History for more journeys into the past, where every moment holds the power to reshape destiny. Subscribe now and witness the unfolding drama of human history like never before. What drives a civilization to worship gods with such fervor? What sacrifices do people make when bound by fear and faith? And how do these acts ripple through history, shaping destinies beyond human control? In ancient Greece, these questions found answers in festivals, sacrifices, and the sacred architecture that bound mortals to immortals. Picture the raucous processions honoring Dionysus, men and women carrying his statue, voices raised in song, wine flowing freely. This was no mere celebration. It was a defiant proclamation of life's joy amid sorrow, a unifying force for a fractured society. But beyond the drunken revelry lay a deeper pulse, a connection to the divine that demanded more than mere festivity. What lay beyond the laughter and song? 3 monumental festivals, the Olympic Games, the Panathenea, and the Dionysia, embodied the pillars of Greek existence: strength, wisdom, and joy. Through these rituals, ancient Greeks not only honored their gods, but also grappled with their own human fears and aspirations. Each event cast a shadow of inevitability, where choices made in devotion echoed across generations, binding the fate of city-states and individuals alike. Could fleeting glory mask the irreversible consequences beneath? When the crowds dispersed and the celebrations faded, a quieter, more intimate dialogue with the divine began. Sacred rites and solemn sacrifices punctuated daily life, whispers of devotion carried on the smoke of burned offerings. These moments were laden with tension, for every ritual was a gamble, a desperate plea for favor that could bring salvation or doom. What price did the Greeks pay for this fragile bond with their gods? At the heart of this religion was sacrifice, the raw, visceral act that tethered humanity to the divine. The Greeks believed their gods required sustenance: impeccable bulls, sheep, or goats, adorned with wreaths and barley, purified for the ritual. The killing itself was a sacred terror. The blood spilled on the altar was the most potent offering, a symbol of irrevocable commitment. Every drop sealed a pact that could not be undone. What consequences lurked in those crimson stains? But sacrifice extended beyond beasts. Wine, bread, honey, and olive oil were laid upon altars or burned to send their fragrant essence heavenward. Each offering was a calculated gesture. Zeus demanded pristine white bulls, Demeter accepted the earth's bounty of grain, and Athena was honored with olive oil, symbolizing her guardianship over Athens. These acts were carefully choreographed messages to the divine, fraught with a tension between hope and dread. How well did the gods listen? Temples stood as monumental thresholds between the human and the divine realms. Far more than architectural marvels, they were the literal homes of gods on earth. The Parthenon in Athens loomed above, a testament to victory and prosperity, housing the colossal gold and ivory statue of Athena Parthenos. Each year, the Panathenea festival brought a new peplos to clothe the goddess, a ritual charged with political and religious weight. Within those walls, prayers and sacrifices wove a tapestry of sacred tension, every act a step toward favor or fury. What secrets did these stone giants guard? The rituals inside the temples were relentless and meticulous. Priests and priestesses performed daily rites of purification, their vigilance an unending struggle to maintain divine favor. Ordinary citizens, from peasants to kings, brought offerings, their hopes and fears entwined with every gift. Inside these sacred spaces, the line between mortal and immortal blurred, but the stakes were impossibly high. Failure meant catastrophe. Could a single misstep unleash divine wrath? These religious acts were no mere traditions. They were the lifeblood of Greek society, weaving social bonds and transferring identity across generations. In every sacrifice, every prayer, every festival, the Greeks confronted the terrifying uncertainty of existence, each choice a thread in the larger fabric of fate. What began as worship became a theater of irreversible decisions, where human faith danced perilously close to hubris and doom. Was their connection to the gods a blessing, or a chain that bound them to inevitable tragedy? If these stories of gods and mortals fascinate you, subscribe for more journeys into the past with quiet history, where every ancient decision still echoes in our world today. What if every choice you made rippled beyond your control, binding you to the whims of gods? Could a single prayer or sacrifice alter the fate of a city, or even an empire? In ancient Greece, these questions weren't just theory, they were urgent reality, where the sacred and the everyday collided in an unbreakable chain. The ancient Greeks did not separate the divine from daily life. Every ritual, from humble prayers whispered in shadowed corners to grand sacrifices that soaked temple floors, served as a bridge, a reminder that gods and mortals shared one vast, intertwined existence. Each act was a pact, a reckoning that bound human fear and hope to the very fabric of the cosmos. But with every offering, the stakes grew higher, the consequences more irrevocable. Imagine standing in a marble temple, heart pounding, watching as priests offer victims to thunderous gods, Zeus, Athena, Odysseus's cunning, immortalized. These figures shaped not only stories, but the very identity of a people. Yet, behind every myth, there lay agonizing decisions, choices that echoed through generations, shaping destinies that no one could rewrite. Was it faith or fear that drove these acts? The myths birthed here, from the wrath of Sophocles' tragedies to Euripides' haunting plays, forged archetypes that would haunt humanity's imagination. Heroes, gods, and their fatal flaws became mirrors reflecting our own struggles with power, pride, and loss. Every tale was a warning. The path taken could unleash glory or doom. And these stories did not fade with time. They infiltrated Renaissance art, modern cinema, and literature, each retelling a pulse in a never-ending saga. Perhaps the most vivid legacy of ancient Greece is the Olympic Games, revived in the late 19th century, but born from the sacred competitions of Olympia. Here, human potential was celebrated, but it was also a ritual steeped in reverence to the divine, a reminder that physical triumph could never be severed from spiritual offering. The Olympic flame, ignited in the land of gods and heroes, carries a burning link to a past alive with tension, sacrifice, and glory. This history is not a distant echo. It is a cascade of irreversible choices and their haunting aftermath. The ancient Greeks' relentless pursuit of meaning, through terrifying gods and mortal fears, left a blueprint for understanding the human condition itself. Every prayer, every sacrifice was a gamble with fate, one that shaped civilizations and still resonates today. Thank you for joining this journey into the depths of ancient Greek religion, a world where gods clashed and mortals trembled, where temples stood as silent witnesses to the choices that defined an era. Stay with Quiet History for more stories where decisions echo through time, and remember to subscribe for the next chapter in humanity's relentless quest for meaning.